We did receive one application by email. It came Sunday, and it was emailed to Andrew's email inbox, and he was at a seminar Monday and Tuesday, so it was past the deadline, but I wanted to make sure that at least the board members received that application. Okay, ready? Still need to take a roll call and everything. Good evening, board members and residents. I'd like to call to order our special meeting for Tuesday, May 20th, 2014, for the appointment of a deputy. A trustee, I'm sorry. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Brado?
Here.
Mr. Capral?
Here.
Mr. Tominello?
Here.
Mr. York?
Here.
Mr. Witt here. Mr. Verkest?
Here. Thank you. Board members, right before the beginning of the meeting, actually, I was working in my office. I checked Andrew's email because he was out last couple days at a seminar for Mapers, and I saw that in his inbox was an application from Mr. Earl Dahmer. It was received Sunday, and I know the posting said the deadline was, I believe, Friday at 4 p.m., but I figured since we received it, I found out about it just a short time ago, I thought I'd at least distribute his application to you. First of all, the reason we're here, of course, Mr. Switkowski is heading to warmer climes in his retirement, and so we wish him well. It presents an opening for the balance of the term, which would be till November 20th, 2016, for a trustee. I believe we received 9 applications, and today's meeting is specifically to allow those 9 applicants to address the board, and if the board members have any questions, we can kind of have an open forum. I believe the posting, or at least in the past, we said we would limit comments to 5 minutes. Is that correct?
That was what we did last time.
Right. I don't know if anyone has an objection with that.
I mean, if somebody goes a little over, I don't
Yeah.
know that we need to have a hard 5 minutes.
No, I don't think we're limiting that, but just to have an idea, so anyone wants to make any comments. I know in the past we've allowed people to address the board, or applicants to address the board in alphabetical order. Does anybody have an objection to that? Is that all right? I guess before we get started, make sure first and foremost we're thankful to all 9 applicants for taking the time out to express an interest. I think we have a really good pool of candidates. So first and foremost, we're appreciative of everyone's willingness to serve the public on the Board of Trustees. The disappointing part of tonight's event is at least 8 people are going to be disappointed with the outcome, and that's unfortunate, because I know I don't know every applicant, but I know several of the applicants, and I know we have some really good candidates, and it's a difficult decision to make. I believe state law dictates that we have 30 days from the vacancy to appoint someone. If we don't do that in a 30-day time period, it automatically defaults to an election, and I believe the next election that it could be considered on would be the November ballot. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep. So, hopefully with the caliber of candidates or applicants that we have, we'll be able to choose someone this evening. Does anybody have any questions before we get started?
Do you want me to do the 5 minutes, or do you want me to just sort of,
I don't know that it would be offensive if we set the timer. If someone goes over, I think we'll take an informal approach to, I don't think we don't even really enforce it too strongly at a regular board meeting, but it's kind of a guideline, so I think 5 minutes is
I
reasonable.
don't want people to feel at the same time that they don't, if they have information to share.
Sure. absolutely. Yep, I think that's reasonable.
I know some of these people, I don't know all of them.
Yep. All right, well, I think that's a good approach. So if there's no questions from the board, I guess we would begin the process. The alphabetical order as provided by the clerk means that our first applicant, or the first person we'd ask if they'd wish to address the board would be Mr. William Batanti.
Good evening. I'm Bill Batanti. My wife Sue and I have been residents of Harrison Township for over 12 years. During that time, we've developed a great fondness for both our neighborhood and the community. And that's really the reason that I'm here this evening seeking this very important position. I've recently retired from an executive director position at J.P. Morgan. I was at the bank for 37 years, and I began with its predecessor bank, National Bank of Detroit. During that time, I've held a number of management positions in operational areas. I was responsible for budget, staffing, and production. I was also responsible for the Midwest Client Service for Treasury Services. I had operating units in Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, and Texas. During the latter part of my career, I was an account manager in the Treasury Sales Department, and in that role, I was responsible for selling banking products to the automotive industry. General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler were my main clients. Some of the products I sold were investment related, so I had to obtain a Series 7 and a Series 63 license. That's a registered representative to sell security services. While I was working at the bank, I still wanted to participate in the community. I'm currently a trustee of the Harrison Township Firefighters Pension Board, and I'm the treasurer of our Glenmar Homeowners Association. An important element of a successful board is the diversity of its members. It's one of the reasons outside members are on boards. An outside trustee should bring with them additional perspective and experience based on his or her background. Working with the inside members, the inside directors who have day-to-day responsibilities, and the other trustees, I think you can create a board that is balanced, thoughtful, and effective. I believe that my background, experience, and interest will provide the necessary elements for me to be an effective trustee. It's great to see so much interest in the position, and I'm confident the board will make a sound decision. If you choose to appoint me, and I hope that you do, I promise to do my very best to work with you, the employees, and the residents to keep Harrison Township a great place to live, to work, and to relax. Thank you for your time this evening, and thank you for your service to the community.
Okay, thank you. Does the board wish to hold questions, or do you, if there's any questions, do you think it's better to ask them on the spot, or do you have a preference?
I think it's better to ask them
While they're up there, yeah.
Yeah, all right, that's fair. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Batanti? No? All right, in the event that we do, you know, we'll leave it open, and if someone does have a question or something comes to mind, we might ask you to readdress the board.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, the next alphabetical applicant would be Mr. Stephen Brock. I guess after that, if whoever might prepare would be Mr. Charles Kellaward.
Good evening, board members. My name is Stephen Brock, and I'm applying for the vacant trustee position. I've been in Harrison Township for 29 years. Excuse me, and I'm a homeowner and also resident, of course. One of the reasons why I haven't participated too much in Harrison Township events is I was in retail for 26 years, and I was working a lot of hours. I was working a lot of over hours, and I was in a situation where my wife also was very sick. She just passed away last July, and I had to retire in 2011 to help take care of her. and unfortunately, she passed away. I retired from ABC Warehouse, and as in ABC Warehouse, I was in sales, did a lot of retailing. I did a lot of planning with different events and different things that we did, and inventory and so forth. I am currently a trustee of the Warren Sterling Heights Elks Lodge. I'm a treasurer of the Mount Clemens Optimist Club. I'm a secretary of the St. Louis Church Men's Club. I'm also a member of the Knights of Columbus in Harrison Township, and I also am a choir member in the St. Louis Church Choir. One of the things that I'm very privileged to do is to work with John Ferlini, who's the brother of Anthony Ferlini, who was your former supervisor. I just participated in a Knights of Columbus Tootsie Roll campaign where we collected money to help mentally impaired children, and I also worked in the fish fry, which helped to serve a lot of Harrison Township residents. And I also have worked with the Adopt a Road program, where we clean a road, and that was with the Mount Clemens Optimist Club. I think that I would be an asset to Harrison Township. I'm a people person. I have worked with people all through my career in retailing and in sales. I worked with customers and did well with customers. So I think I would be an asset to your company or your organization. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Brock? All right, thank you. If we have something else, we might ask you to readdress the board. Thanks. Next, Mr. Charles Kellawart, and after that will be Mr. Patrick Linneberry.
Are we gonna hear from Earl Dahmer?
I don't see him here.
Yeah, I don't see that he's here, and I just wanted to make sure I just wanted to make sure I just received it. I wanted to make sure I distributed
I
it.
just wanted to get that clarified. That's
Yep. Sorry.
Not a problem. Good evening, board members. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. I have submitted a resume. I presume that it's been distributed amongst the board members. I'd be happy to answer any questions at the end of my little presentation here relative to anything on that. A little bit about me, that aside from what's in the resume, overall I believe I'm a independent thinker. I'm pretty well versed in a lot of different subject areas and disciplines that come before a board or before a commission. And I served through the fire department as an advisory to a couple of boards. And through that process, I learned a lot about the master plan. I learned a lot about the township ordinances, learned a lot about how the processes work for development, and I gained a lot of insight in that. I also feel that, being that I'm a lifelong resident, that I have a good feel for the infrastructure of the community, the needs, the areas that have been improved, other areas that need to be addressed. It's good to be proactive on infrastructure, I believe. I saw a lot of failures in infrastructure through the fire service, even just in the water system alone, let alone roads, and a lot of efforts that were done to improve that. But one of the hot topics in my head lately has been storm drainage, and you can see how not being proactive on that leads to some systemic failures in the community relative to roads and proper development, and we really, I feel, is one of the prime areas that I've been looking at myself personally is that type of infrastructure. As always, I always like to embrace new ways to provide services to a community. We did that a lot in the fire service, again, by always adding different operations, different special operations, things in public education and so forth, and I feel that type of experiences prepares me well for sitting on a board of this nature and looking to how to better provide our services, whether through the use of technology or just straight up personal involvement, such as the workshop last night. That was a phenomenal turnout of people and a great response, and I felt we got a lot of good ideas out of that. But within that, you know, making sure that we keep an eye on cost savings and reducing redundancies in services. The fire authority is another area where I feel I could be of good use if, based on my experiences. In the past, it's always been somewhat of a lament that there weren't more people. Jack was a great asset on the board because he had a background in emergency and public services and so forth. And I think he gave some good perspective to the board when it came to making decisions about how to go forward on perhaps a consolidation or a merger of some sort, and I think I could do some good in those areas. Beyond that, I've learned a lot about taxation, dealing with budgets. Again, it was amazing. I never felt that I would ever have to deal that much with that, in the profession I was in. But as you very well know, that every dollar counts, and you learn a lot about how millages work and how all the different tax laws affect it and so forth. And so I took it upon myself to educate myself on those things, and I feel that is an area of strength that I have as well. I believe that's about everything I wanted to say, and if you have any questions, I'm prepared to answer.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any questions for the applicant?
I do have one. And, being from the fire service, one thing that concerns me, and I'm just asking, you don't even have to answer this question if you don't want, if I'm putting you on the spot.
Not at all.
Disregard what I, in this town, our number one problem right now, or concern, I guess problem, concern would be interchangeable. The costs in the fire department are spiraling out of control, and we've been running a deficit. We've been pulling hundreds of thousands of dollars out of the fire fund balance every year, and you can only do that so many times before your piggy bank is empty. So Jack, while being in the fire service and staunch supporter of the union, and Jack was able to separate himself from his role here and his role as a union. I'm going to get my guys whatever I can, and he did that very well. Or at least he never showed me anything differently.
Right.
And
I guess you're
So-
up there.
all right, I'm done. So I guess being a Harrison Township, retired Harrison Township commander, can you separate yourself from the job as management here, and
sure.
what would seem to be just on the certain, it seemed to be a loyalty to the men that serve with you for, 30 years, 25, 30 years. I mean, there are decisions on this board that we have to make that, unfortunately will affect those men. And it's not because we want to be cruel. It's just a function of,
Right.
of the piggy bank is empty.
Right.
You know,
So the question is, can I separate the two?
yes.
No question about that. Bear in mind, I am a resident and a taxpayer all my life. Whether it was my parents paying taxes or me paying taxes, I paid part of my own salary through my taxes. So it is an issue where I have I believe, a unique perspective where I can recognize where we're lacking, where we need to cut, when I'm fiscally conservative. I don't feel that situation, if anything, I think it brings more perspective to the decision making. That I can tell you what I may have a perspective that you may not agree with, but that's what this process would be about when you make a vote and you make a decision relative to the quality of the service to the community. That's, in my view, number one relative to public services or emergency services and preparedness. Because when things go bad and everybody looks around and say, well, how come nobody showed up? We at least know why nobody showed up, So if it comes to layoffs, it's something that nobody likes to face, but yes, there are times in economic situations.
I didn't say
create
that. I'm just.
Oh, no, but, right, but
No,
that
but
would
that's-
certainly be a charged issue, right?
And that point,
It's a hard deal.
I'm a taxpayer. I'm sensitive to how that impacts residents and business. I dealt with business as a fire marshal for 10 years. And every time you wanted to enforce a code, they were saying, you're killing me, you're putting me out of business.
We still hear
And
that
I
today,
would
believe it or
find,
not.
I would find a way to educate and interact and work with people in that fashion to get them to get some sort of buy-in and to recognize and maybe see the big picture and understand that, yeah, if I spend $1 here, I'll save $10 over there by avoiding loss of business because of a catastrophic event that would close their doors for a period of time. EMS, police, emergency preparedness, fire service, water mains, all those things all tied together in one big happy community. I think I have a unique perspective on it. But at the same time, like I said, I'm also a taxpayer. So yes, I feel loyalty to the fire service. It's probably the most rewarding career a person could choose. But at the same time, it also gives me a unique perspective that I think would be beneficial to be sitting on the board.
I wish we had $50 million, to fix all those items, but we just,
Money fixes everything.
with
Just
the
ask the VA.
water,
All they want is
sewer,
more
and the
money, right?
drains, and trust me, I don't think there's anybody here
Right.
that wouldn't want to fix the drains or fix the.
No, there's a spending of money and there's wasteful spending. And again, I could have a perspective on what I thought would be practical or wasteful, proposals, economic proposals and so forth, so. Anything else?
What year did you retire? 2005?
From Harrison Township, I retired in 2005.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? All right.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. If we think of something, we might ask you to readdress the board. Is the monitor reflective of what's being broadcast or no?
No, there's a second one.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
I don't know.
Okay,
I'll go look.
all right. Just make sure that, yeah, we're broadcast. All right, let's see. Our next applicant is Mr. Patrick Linneberry, and after him will be Mr. Robert Long.
Good evening, board. I see some familiar faces, and gentlemen, I've not had a chance to meet you. My name is Patrick Lindenbury. I've been a township resident for 20 years now. My wife and I live on Cherry Lane, and our children have graduated from Lance Cruz High School. And both of our kids served in the marching band, which, as you know, is a part-time job in and of itself. So now that my kids are out, I do have some more time, and I would like to get back to this community. I love Harrison Township. I have a unique job. I'm the senior producer of Macomb Cable Network in Mount Clemens, which is a shared service. I am both the city's cable TV coordinator and the school district's media coordinator. So I do work for both of those entities. We are shared, financed by both. So I do have kind of unique idea about how government and school can work together, finance some very, very unique services. If you aren't aware of our program, it's a multi-award winning program, and I've been doing that for 17 years. I've also spent a couple hundred hours in that booth back there doing planning commission meetings and zoning board meetings for the township. So I'm very well aware of the unique challenges that riverfront and waterfront properties bring to our residents as far as their lot size and some of the challenges those things can bring. I listened through all the plats and plotting and all that stuff, and I have an understanding that when that comes to those issues come to before this board, that they're sensitive issues, they need to be dealt with, but the learning curve for me will be short because I'm aware of a lot of those challenges, having been through and listened to a lot of those meetings with Mr. Tominello and some other people. So I'm very well aware of what the challenges in this township are as far as the money that those things are. I'm familiar with government budgeting, reporting, and things of that nature. So being behind a camera, I get to watch a lot of these things go, and I experience a lot. I do have a lot of experience as far as networking goes. As it says in my application, I am on the Turning Point Public Relations Committee. I do a lot of large community scale events in Mount Clemens, the Soapbox Derby, the parade, many festivals I was a chairman on and also was working as far as that goes. So I am very well versed with large scale community programs and projects and events. One thing I did not mention, I'm also on a council where I approve art grants for Macomb and St. Clair County for small art projects that go on. So I'm asked by a lot of different organizations to participate because of my experience and because of the different things that I do. I'm asked all the time to participate on groups and committees and things of that nature, and this is one that I want to do. Not that I don't want to do the other ones. I love all those things that I do. I wouldn't say yes if I didn't enjoy doing them. But this is an opportunity that when it came up, I said, you know what, it's time for me to step out, and I'd love to be a member of this board, and I hope you'll consider me. If you have any questions, I would love to answer them. One of the things I'd like to see us focus on, and one of the reasons why I did put my application in, is that I think we can, as a township, do a better job of branding ourselves and getting our message out. We do not have a very good social media footprint. We don't do a great job of communicating the good things that we do. it's easy to communicate the bad things, everyone can read all about that stuff, but I think we can do a better job of communicating the good things that we do, finding ways of working people, networking people together, whether it be through, through Facebook and social media, through the township website, through our cable station. We do have a lot of tools here that I think are underused, and with my experience and with my guy, I think we could do some of those things and possibly do a better job.
Okay.
That I would probably agree with. He's the master of media.
Yeah.
I do know that every time we have a problem in the cable, I, on occasion, will call Pat and he will donate his time to come over here and debug our system for us.
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Lindenberry? Well, just a kind of off the topic, the Grand Prix, is that still scheduled to occur this year?
Soapbox Derby, Saturday after Labor Day, every
Okay,
year.
good. I'd heard a rumor that it wasn't happening, and I says, well, I'd only heard it
We
one
were
place.
down to 48 cars, which is pretty much where we like to be. I mean, at one time we got to 88, which was kind of a very, very, very long day. But in the time we've been doing that particular charity event, we've donated over $250,000
Wow.
to local charities in the area.
Yeah, I know I've
Not
worked,
just to Mount Clemens, but all over the area, including the New York firefighters after 9/11. So that has been it's a great event. If you
oh, it
haven't
is,
been
it's
down
an
to
excellent
it's
event. I've
fantastic.
had the chance to work it the last few years with the Boy Scouts, and when I started out, I was at the bottom lifting cars. Last year, at least, I got lucky to be at the top of the hill just checking out safety.
Well, we
But
got
it
our
is-
football players lifting the cars now,
Yeah,
so you guys don't have
yeah.
to worry about that.
I was
But that's
happy
one
about
of their
that.
community service projects is after they play Clintondale, they have to go lift cars the next day, so.
Nope, it's a great event, so.
Are you the chair of that event, or?
No, I'm just on the committee.
Oh, okay.
No, Bob Boyers is the coordinator and Pete Callahan's the president. I've been on the committee for probably 15, 16
Nice.
years.
Yeah, excellent. Well, it is a very good event, that's for sure. If we weren't so flat here in Harrison Township, we could do something like that.
We can build ramps though, right?
Yeah, that's
Always
right.
build a starting ramp, we can do that.
All right, any other questions? All right, well, thanks. If
you.
we think of something, we might ask you to readdress the board.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next is Mr. Robert Long. And after that will be Mr. James Sunstock.
We can close Bridgeview and do it at the Bridgeview Bridge.
There you go.
Parks and Rec event. Do it this, what is that, the first week after Labor Day? They can do it the second week after Bridgeview Bridge. Parks and Rec.
Good evening, board members. Thanks for the opportunity to come here today. I just wanted to share some additional things beyond what I submitted to you to help you understand how I could, possibly help you further with the development and progression of our township. My wife and I have been here since, I want to reset that.
Sorry.
Thanks, I'm done already. Actually, I'm just glad to be here. I had an appendectomy on Friday, and so I'm just happy to even be here today. I had no idea what that was gonna be like, but I wasn't even gonna mention that, but you kind of threw me off on that. Anyhow, I just wanted to say that my wife and I have been here since 2007, and since then, we've really felt a part of this community. In my adult life, I've jumped around a couple different cities. This is the one where we really felt home. And my wife and I have taken this with both hands and really embraced it. I'm actually a membership director right now for, as you know, some of you may know, with St. Hubert's Knights of Columbus. I'm actually farther ahead than any other council in terms of membership. I succeeded in fulfilling over my quota within the first 6 months. What I bring to you today is a understanding of business, and I've been with the government for 32 years. I've been at Selfridge several times since 1977, so I'm very familiar with that and this township. I've come here for many things other than just for living here now. We've been coming here all of our lives, and basically wanted to tell you, reemphasize the fact that because I'm a certified Baldrige examiner for the state of Michigan, as well as certified for the Army, that I bring a business perspective that can help you save some of the dollars that you were recently just talking about. In the savings of that dollar, I would use Lean Six Sigma tools, as I'm black belt certified. I would use diplomacy, civility, negotiating skills, and understanding and respect to the people and the other board members as we do that. I also would want to be able to go out and learn more, because obviously A position like this isn't something that you train for your whole life. So when you get in this position, you hope to be able to reach out and take other classes and enhance your knowledge, skills, and abilities so that you can learn some of the other things that help you progress even further. And I know Jack was a great mentor and to a lot of you, and I've heard you say that in some of the other, because I've watched a lot of the meetings that you guys have run. And I was very appreciative. And one of the things in my resume, as you notice, was, and I was hoping you were going to kind of catch this, was block captain. And that was sort of like a self-imposed title for myself. And I had a unique situation of being living between two different widows. And they had certain issues where they were more reclusive. And what happened was I was able to get them out, make them feel proud of their houses. We banded together. I organized some people in the neighborhood, and we really built up the landscape of their houses. We did that for both of them. They come outside now. They're the first ones to wave to us. And really, they try to attribute that to me, but they always had that deep inside themselves. So I like to feel that I was part of that. Yet they call me the deputy mayor. The mayor is 2 doors down. He's been there since '67. And across the street is our assumed chief of staff. And of course, my wife is on the beautification committee. And we kind of run it like you sort of run it here. I'm very familiar with the formalities and the way that you run your board from being on the board at the St. Hubert Knights of Columbus as well. So the business perspectives that I bring to you and all my background of supply and logistics, budget, IT, and strategic planning, I hope that is warrants enough for you to consider my position to be part of your board. And that's all I have.
All right, excellent, thank you. Any questions, board members? I had a question. You mentioned the Baldridge, and I'm not sure that I'm familiar with that. Could you expound on that, please?
The Malcolm Baldridge Quality of Excellence Award is handed out by the president, and it goes into different categories. It could be health care, it could be general business, it could be education. So there's different categories that businesses would vie for to win this prestigious award, and they have to go through the 7 different criteria that the Baldridge program has laid out. And they have to show how systematically they are evolved in each one of those processes. So when you try to determine the best way to run your business in terms of your products and services, your people, your processes, and your culture, you could be a butcher shop or you could be a city council, and each one of those shares the same common threads in terms of how systematic are you in terms of how you run your business. Can we plug and play the players? Can we pull you out, put somebody else in there, and the ball just keeps going? That's how you want to be as a business, and that's how we run things. I'm the lead strategic planner at TACOM. That's how I run things there. And I am on the board as well, and I chair a lot of committees for them as well. So the Baldridge Award is it's a big part of that. It's something that we strive for in the government. And it's also something that's pretty prevalent. It used to be a little bit more popular in the private sector, but whatever cause it's in and out of favor, that's actually what it is, though.
Okay, excellent. All right, thank you very much. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you. And if we think of something more, we might ask you to readdress the board, of course. So we've got Mr. Senstock, and then after that, Mr. Jim Senstock, and then after that, Mr. William Servio.
Good evening. I want to start with my address because I've addressed you guys many times.
31698.
I'm going to just... I'll
Give him 3 minutes.
Most of you do know me. I've lived in the township for 50 years. I've worked with the township boards, various boards, all the way back to Candace and Rob Huth when they were on the board, and Peggy Kennard, for over 35 years. I've been the president of Venice Shores Property Owners Association for over 30 years, so I must be doing something right. Nobody else wants it. I have also been very involved in the community with the Cajun activity when the Selfridge Joint Use came out and they were trying to do it. We worked some nights as many as 24 hours around the clock trying to stop that from coming here in the township. And I keep my ear to the ground on that now. I've been involved in many boards. I've been on the planning commission. We rewrote a master plan. We rewrote the ordinances. When I was on there, I was on the zoning board of appeals. For 5 years, I was the vice chairman. As a volunteer, I've assisted many other homeowners associations with their various issues. I get calls all the time. I've had the same phone number since I bought my house in 1977. So everybody knows it. Everybody knows how to get a hold of me. I have been a trustee and I have been a supervisor. So I have very extensive background in how government works, how the various elected and appointed officials, their job responsibilities. When I took over as supervisor, I went up to the Township Association and bought all the books that they sold concerning the duties of every single person, trustee, treasurer, clerk, all of those people. I read them all. I know what they say. But in addition, I ask everybody to go ahead and read that also. So they were aware of what their job responsibilities were. Some interesting things in that book. During my career at General Motors, I had extensive experience in budgets, contracts, labor relations at many levels. During the latter part of my career, I worked in purchasing at both the brand and corporate levels. Worked for GM Truck, I worked for corporate. In that capacity, I evaluated all the worldwide contracts, not all of them, but the ones that were assigned to my area of expertise, which was basically chassis and suspension and things like that. Even exhaust systems and so on. Actually went to Sweden to contractors, let out a contract for exhaust systems and catalytic converters. I worked with both large and small companies. Basically, I interacted directly with their presidents, vice presidents, salespeople, and we dealt with issues of cost, efficiency, quality, delivery, and startup matters. When I was my final assignment before I left General Motors, I was assigned to sit as the GM corporate advisor to assist the UAW in delivering quotes that were both cost effective and competitive so that they might be able to keep their jobs in GM. Most of the UAW people didn't know how to do that kind of stuff, so GM assisted them and actually had advisors assist them so that they could be competitive. I believe that I will be a good trustee. I have been a trustee before. I know what trustees do. I don't have any real strong allegiances. Everybody thinks I do, but I don't. I'll chew out everybody, kind of an equal opportunity person. And I always look at all sides of the issue. And I will change my opinion if I'm presented with additional information. And I've done that many times, and both as a board member, as a supervisor, where people have come up and presented other ideas or other options, and I've said, wait a minute, I'm wrong. I respect people. I try to respect people as best as I can. I expect the same thing back from them. And I respect their opinions, and I don't get into personal attacks. It's just not my nature. I'm very positive about things. I may disagree with you, I may disagree strenuously, but I'm not going to personally attack you. I want to do the right thing for the citizens of Harrison Township. I will do a good job, and I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Board members, any questions for Mr. Senstock?
What's your address?
All right, well, if we do think of something, we might ask you
Okay.
to come back up. Thank you. Next we've got Mr. William Servial, and after that, Mr. Michael Scuppin.
William Servil sounds so formal. Make it Bill Servil.
Okay.
For those of you who don't know me, I've been a resident for 36 years, been married for 39 years. Back in the early 70s, I was living in Clinton Township in a condominium. Got a job working at one of the marinas here, fell in love with Harrison Township. Shopped around and bought a lot in 1975. Built my first house, moved in 1979. Raised my two children, my namesake Bill the fourth and Michael. They both went through the school system here. During that time, I worked with them on recreation baseball for 13 years, Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts until they outgrew it. Did Science Olympiad for over 15 years, all the way up to the county level as a event supervisor, as my wife did too. And then I got involved in politics here in 2004. I'm a licensed contractor for the state of Michigan as a builder for 35 years, and I've never had a complaint. And I state that because that speaks to integrity. If you check the records, most contractors have had complaints against them from disgruntled customers, sometimes not merited, but nevertheless, I've never had one at all. If you ask people, they'll say I'm tough, but I'm the best builder that they know. I've built many homes and additions in the township. My first appointment here was on the cable committee, and while on the cable committee, when I joined the cable committee, we had what we called fuzzy TV, if you recall that. I was instrumental in getting a bid for new equipment for around $15,000 or $16,000. That equipment was installed in 2004, I believe, or 2005. I was also instrumental in getting the WOW to connect to the school. Pancow now has a channel because of me. We also, as member of the cable committee, we also rewrote the policies and procedures for how you guys operate and concerning the cable, excuse me. And also for the second channel that we got on WOW that we call a community access channel. We started from the ground up on that one. Then I was appointed to, about simultaneously, the Housing Board of Appeals as an inaugural member when it was first started up here in 2006. I've been the builder member since then. I'm also a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals since 2006. I'm currently the secretary for the second year. And I'm also the chairman of the Economic Development Corporation since 2009, since Tony Ferlini, your predecessor, started it back up. That speaks to the fact that I'm engaged with the township and I want to give back to the community. I'm currently retired, so I have the time. When I bring things to the ZBA, I'm usually the one that does the in-depth research. I take a lot of time and study the thing. I believe I'm fair. I've never had an issue with a resident. I've been on camera, and to my knowledge, nobody's ever made a complaint about how I handled anything. I believe that if I was the privilege of being appointed as a trustee, that I could work with the rest of you. I may have a difference of opinion, but I'm fair-minded and I listen to the other opinions. Let me look at my notes here. One other thing, I'm willing to resign from whatever boards and commissions that I need to, should I be privileged to be appointed. That may be necessary on some of the things I serve on. One thing I forgot to mention, I'm a Vietnam veteran. I was an MP in Vietnam for 14 months. And I think I have a good handle on how this township works. I've been coming to the meetings pretty much fairly regularly since 2004, so that's over 10 years. Sometimes I'm the only one here, and usually when I get up here, I've always treated every one of you with respect. I've only lost my temper maybe once or twice in all those years. It's more than I can say for the predecessor that came behind me, or before me.
You always are pretty Pretty cool, calm and collected up there.
You know, and I don't get up here unless I have something to contribute to the agenda item. Sometimes I'll come to the meeting and not say anything. I won't get up necessarily public comments. I come usually because I look at the agenda and there is something that maybe I have something to contribute, and I hope that you people will consider it. Should I be appointed the trustee, I would spend a lot of time on that packet before I ever sat in that chair. So I would be educated and hopefully make the right decisions for the residents of the township. Any questions?
Thank you. Ward, do you have any questions for Mr. Servil?
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Thank you for your service to our country, and if we have a further question, we may ask you to readdress the board. Let's see, our next applicant is Mr. Michael Scuppin, and then finally, Ms. Barbara Urban.
Good evening, Board. I would like to apply for the position of trustee. My career has been 42 years of selling to the automotive and the automotive tiers. In that time that I did that, I learned that I not only had a customer that I had to sell to, I had my own plant, the manufacturing plant, that I had to sell the idea of servicing this company to make sure that that was what was a viable package for both parties. I did budget management for years, sales forecasting. I was always in the top sales bracket of all my career. My wife and I live here. We've been here for 1 year. We were former residents of Clinton Township. We have decided that we'd like to live here in Harrison Township on the water. We enjoy it. I was ecstatic here last night when I saw what the potential could be for this community. I could not believe the turnout that you got last night. I was expecting, as you did, a very small turnout, and to see 50 or 60 people here, it was just heartwarming to see that there was enough people concerned to come out and spend time with you. If given the opportunity, I feel that I can be very objective in my decisions in helping the board here. I am retired. I have a lot of time to spend researching various things that are needed, and I will give my best effort if appointed to the Board of Trustees. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Board members, any questions for Mr. Scuppin? All right, thank you very much. Our last applicant is Mrs. Barbara Urban.
Thank you, Board. Good evening. You're going to have a tough choice. You have a plethora of talent in this audience here tonight. I come and offer my service as trustee. As you know, I was a trustee for 12 years. I enjoyed it thoroughly. During those 12 years, I sat on the Zoning Board of Appeals, Parks and Recreation, Environmental Commission,
To SEMCOG, Beautification, Board of
yes,
Elections.
Yes,
Mount
yes.
Clemens Eagles, Moose, Huron Point Yacht Club, past member Guani Golf Club, and Harrison Township Parks and Rec.
Zoning Board of Appeals, too.
And I
Yep,
believe a
ZBA.
member of SEMCOG.
Historical Commission, I don't know if you mentioned that, but quite a few, there's no doubt about that.
Yes.
The
Sim-
watershed, looks like.
Clinton River, yes, when we were involved with the Clinton River watershed, I was the liaison to that. So I learned a lot of things about a lot of different things and how it worked, which I was able to put to use here when we had difficult situations, we had flooding, and then we've had dry seasons. See, after I got out of office, that's when the canals dried up. I think that there's a reason there, but,
So you're saying
no.
if we want water levels, appoint you.
That, absolutely, absolutely. Also, right now, I sit on the Selective Service Commission. It's the draft board. They have to have a draft board in case the draft is ever reenacted. And they contacted me and asked me to sit on it since I had all this background. I was really pleased with the thought, and also I didn't like the thought. But if somebody's going to have to say somebody's child is going to go in the service, I have two sons. One served as an airborne ranger and one in the Air Force. I have a grandson who's Air Force Reserve at Selfridge. So I know what it's like to make these kind of decisions and make them fairly. Plus, there's one thing lacking on this board. It's a female. Sorry, I had to say it. But it's very obvious that there's not a female here. And I think that sometimes we can give you the kind of decision that maybe wouldn't be so cut and dried. Maybe I could give you a different perspective, because we do have a lot of females in the township. This first time, I think, that there has not been, this election was the first time that there hasn't been a female on here since
Well, there was
before I
none on
moved
the
in.
ballot.
Pardon me?
I don't think any females ran on the ballot.
You scared them.
Not me.
You just had to have scared them, but I don't scare away, as you can see. I did put my name in when Mr. Verkestu assumed the supervisor seat, and I did put my name in at that time. However, the clerk told me I didn't have to show up at the meeting, and since I wasn't here, I couldn't speak for myself. So I'm speaking for myself tonight. I would be happy to take this over. I've had a lot of training. The Townships Association, I read the books Mr. Senstock got. SIMCOG, after I left, I was going on first chair. When I left office, of course, I out of that, and then Mr. Cannon took my place as representative for Macomb County on the SIMCOG board, and went on to become the chairman of SIMCOG, which is a pretty hefty role to play, because they make a lot of decisions on the roads and bridges and transportation. I was able to, through contacts, get a bridge fixed one time when I was on the board because of speaking to people from SIMCOG. Also, something about our bus situations. So I did also get computers. I didn't build them or anything like that. I got free computers from the government for our senior center twice. However, the second time I got them, I was out of office by the time it was to go and pick them up, and I believe, I don't remember his name, but
Mike Rice.
Mike Rice went and picked them up for me. He and
He's
his wife.
watching this. He's at home pounding on his. Yeah, I picked those TVs up, the computers up.
He sure did. He and his wife, instead of flying to Washington D.C., he and his wife took a van and picked them up. He only picked up half. He says he didn't have room for any more, and the rest had to go back to in-service. So I don't have that contact anymore, so I just want to let you know that. Anyway, I want to thank you for your consideration. I think you would find that I'm easy to work with, and that I'm open for creative decisions, for challenges, and I kind of know the people who to go to find out answers. So I would appreciate your consideration very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Board members, any questions for Mrs. Urban? All right, thank you. Well, that concludes the I guess you'd say the interview process or the presentation from the candidates. I know there are other members here present, or I should say other residents or citizens here present. I don't know if, of course, typically within our board meetings, we allow for public comment after a motion's been made and seconded. But I think with this format, I think there's a reason to allow the floor to be open prior, because I think once a motion is made and seconded and a vote occurs, I mean, the board members are kind of stuck with following whoever makes a motion. So I think unless the board has an objection, now might be an appropriate time to open the floor for public comments in the event that there are any residents or citizens here that would wish to address the board.
You guys haven't heard from me in a while. Randy LaForest, resident. This was a very nice interview process, much better than the previous ones. Very talented pool to choose from. However, I am here in support of Mrs. Urban, and Jim and Bill and a few others, but because I know them, but I feel she has a calming influence. She is very smart. I've called her many, many, many times. And she knew just what to do, who to call, told me, or would tell me what to do in order to get a problem fixed. And that's who I am in support of, for whatever it's worth. But thank you for letting me speak.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other residents that might like to address the board at this time? All right, well, hearing none, we'll close the floor for public comment and move back to the board. Are there any comments, board members, or any motions or
You know, it's
discussion?
been said a couple times, but it is impressive, the people that came up. It's, even looking at the resumes was one thing, but hearing people talk, it makes it even a harder decision.
Absolutely.
Based on the caliber of people that come up. And I just want to, those of you that aren't selected, thank you, and however this turns out, thank you for everyone for applying, so.
Sure. And certainly from time to time, because we did have such an extensive and qualified list of applicants, there are from time to time openings on various boards and commissions within the township. So in the event that you may not be successful, perhaps, keep an ear to the ground, and if there's an opening in a board or, something in the future, we certainly know that at least you're interested in serving. Any other comments or discussion?
I guess I have a couple of comments. Once again, I think everybody, obviously we have a great pool of individuals, and, I guess I'm just sorry that I didn't get to meet some of you. I know some of you from past experience in elections and things, and, I wish that when you apply, there's nothing wrong with coming and talking to the board members, individually, especially the 3 full-timers, to get to, prior to this meeting, so you maybe get a little bit different perspective on people's thoughts. And one of the other items, if you're interested in these positions, please come to the meetings and express yourself at the podium. It's a good way to get to know, what's happening within the community. Like Mr. Verkest said, we always have positions available, on different committees. We're always looking for volunteers. But I would also like to say, with this pool of individuals, and as hard as this is going to be, and I don't personally know that there's a clear-cut person at this point. There is an option to do, unlike the last time, when Mr. Forlini had left, he became the state representative, and of course, Mr. Verkest was appointed the supervisor. We didn't have an election for 2 years. We would have had to have paid for an election. And this time, we can just send this right to an election in November, and that takes it out of, I don't know what decision to make right now, in all honesty. And with this pool of candidates, You know, this is the citizen's position, and you get these jobs by an election. All of us sitting on this board went through elections. We went through campaign finance. We went through, you know, the paper skewering you and your, you know, your opponents sending, you know, email all over the township in mailboxes and things. You know, that is an option. And people that really want this job can certainly go and run for that in November. You know, the best person win. But at the same time, I understand if we're going to appoint, I thought I'd throw that out there. It doesn't cost us anything at this point to do an election. It doesn't even really change the makeup of this board because people that watch this know it's 6-1. It just turns to 5-1. So it doesn't change the dynamics at all by doing a November election. So I'm just throwing that out there to the board members on how you feel about that.
Okay, is there any other discussion, comments?
I think we have somebody on mic. I think you wanna-
Did
like
you
to
have some
speak?
public comment?
He came in late.
Yeah,
so
that's
yeah,
all right,
yeah.
sure. Well, let's open up the floor for public comment again.
Thank you, thank you.
I'm surprised you didn't put in Mr.
Thank you.
Bardell.
No, I'm very,
You're
very
one of
busy.
the only other person. We have two people that come to the meeting. Mr.
Very
Servio
busy in the
and you.
private sector, but I just wanted to make a comment, and I would like to ask for permission. I know, 8 o'clock, and, everyone's blood sugar's probably bouncing around, and you want to probably wrap it up, but what I wanted to say was, having worked in the private sector for 37 years, and to get to know all the candidates and try to get to know a little bit about their personality and maybe their effervescence and maybe a little bit of their vulnerabilities and strengths and so forth. I was wondering, I know we may not have time for it, but in my years in the private sector, I've always stuck up for the underdog a lot of times, and a lot of times it's worked out, and other times it, chopped my head off. And I was wondering if there was any of the candidates in their work career have ever went out of their way and went for something that was not necessarily popular with everybody, but felt passionate about it, and maybe went against the grain, maybe did get their head chopped off a couple times, and maybe, some things did work out, maybe some things didn't work out, but I would just like to know if anybody understands what the word ethics means, and if they've done anything in their career that was ethical, that was maybe against the grain of maybe their coworkers, and it was something that they believed in, and they maybe helped the person out, or maybe it backfired or whatever. And I would like to know if any of the candidates, or if you would let them have permission to maybe speak, another half hour or whatever. I know it's, 8 o'clock and so forth. But to speak on that and kind of let us know who you are and, what your passions are and what you love about Harrison Township, what you don't like, what your pet peeves are, what drives you bonkers, what you like to see, things like that, so we can kind of get to know you on more of a personal level, too. Because working on a board, you don't have to agree with everybody, but you have to of course, get along with everyone and communicate, and so forth. Okay, but I just want to make that statement. I know there's a lot of dynamics and so forth, and sometimes it's good to have a lot of different people on the board and different opinions, even if they don't agree with everything that you say, and just have a lot of different ideas coming in and then going to a think tank type tank like that. But I was just wondering if anybody had any ethics type stories to tell without mentioning names or anything like that, but just situations that they could have been involved in where they went to bat for somebody, and maybe it did work out, maybe it didn't work out. I know with me, it might work out 25% of the time. Usually I go to bat for the underdog and I get my head chopped off, but that's me. But anyway, I still try to help people out, but thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any thoughts on that?
heard a lot of the subject matter that was spoke about by the resident.
Okay, yeah, certainly we gave everyone an equal opportunity to address the board, and not everybody used that
He
time.
wasn't here, and I don't know if
Yeah.
he was aware of.
Yeah, but each board member, or each applicant was given 5 minutes to address the board. I know some of them, when they went over, we didn't penalize them, and some were able to wrap up their comments prior, so I guess we didn't go through a question and answer with each one, but any other comments or discussion, thoughts, board members?
Is there any thought on taking that to an election, or are we just gonna try and appoint?
Certainly I can say my preference is the appointment process. I think that's the best way for us to have a complete board, in light of the fact that we had heard from really a good pool of candidates. Again, it'll be a disappointment if in my mind, if I say, well, I think Mr. Smith is the number one candidate, that just means that I'm disappointed in the fact that the number 2, 3, 4, 5 candidates weren't chosen, because again, it's a difficult process. But I don't believe that we're faced with choosing from a weak pool. I think we have a pretty strong pool, and if the person, if the man or lady that you prefer isn't chosen, I think we could all agree that even if your number one candidate wasn't the one chosen, there are still a lot of good candidates. So I don't know that we have to have the board as a 6-member board and go to an election. I think we could appoint this evening.
Yeah, but my point is that these jobs aren't really our jobs to really appoint. That's the law. If Mr. Swikowski actually would have done this a month earlier, we would have been bound by law. They did change the election law, and we would have been bound by law. I believe it was April 3rd, if he would have resigned. It would have had to go to a primary election. I think it's 6 weeks before that date is 6 weeks before the primary or something. These jobs here are the people's jobs. It's a democracy. But I'll do my job if the board wants to appoint, that's what we'll do. But, I just want everybody to know that, I feel strongly in the electoral process at the same time.
Sure. Yep, and you made a... yep.
That is what this job is.
Yep.
It's the people's job,
Yeah, you made a valid point earlier that we were all elected, but again, state law does say that our first choice is an appointment process. If we fail to do that within a certain period of time, then the default is an election. But, we're certainly not considering appointment contrary to state law.
right now would be 100% for an appointment, if not for the fact that we had a free election essentially in November. If the township had to pay $20,000 or $30,000, of course I'm going to save the township the $20,000 and let's do an appointment. But the simple fact is, like I said, we do have that election in November, and it doesn't cost us anything.
Well, on the flip side, I think we should appoint somebody. So I'll make a motion. I'm able to do that.
The floor is open for any action.
I'll make a motion to appoint Charles Callowart to the position of trustee until the November 20th, 2016 term expiration.
Okay, we've got a motion by Mr. Barato. Is there support?
I'll support that.
All right, we've got support by Mr. Caprell. Discussion, board members?
Oh, Randy, you were right.
Could you explain what you're talking about, Mr. York?
Huh?
Can you explain your comment there to the
Well, you
public?
heard Ms. LaForest talking to me.
Right, I
that,
did.
That, it's gonna be the same as before, and,
What does that imply?
I think it just implies what it implies.
No, well, tell me what it implies, because obviously
I
I'm
just think
stupid and
that
I don't get it.
Ms. LaForest said that she heard that the board majority was going to put in Mr. Callowart outside prior to the meeting. You were standing right there.
I was on my phone, so I
You
didn't.
were standing right there. That's what she told me.
So you're making an allegation that the board.
I didn't make any, I just said she was right. All I said was you were right.
So
I-
you're agreeing
I
with
said
her
I
that there was a
hadn't heard
fix
that.
in, so,
I
if
said-
you're making an allegation, make an allegation.
I didn't make an allegation. I said,
You said you were right, which means I agree with your allegation that there's a
she
fix.
made a comment to me outside, I just said that she was right.
So you're
What's the
agreeing with her
problem?
that there was a fix in?
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I
That's
said
what
she
it
was
sounds
right.
like. You're saying, you're
record.
making an allegation that there's
For the
improper
record,
action.
this was the conversation, Adam, for the record.
For the record.
I heard Mr.
I'm-
York
I'm
that-
making the motion because
Right.
his characteristics seem to be the closest to Jack's, based on what I've seen tonight.
That's fine,
So,
and that's fine.
I mean, based on what I've seen tonight, he seems to be the closest fit to the trustee that's vacant now. So I think that this makes sense. I have a few others, too. If this fails, I have a few others that I think are viable
And-
candidates, too.
And I would say, and I would say that out of the pick for me, and you know, I haven't seen most of the folks ever at a board meeting. And I think that speaks volumes of you know, I think that for an appointed position, I think that you know, you should be on a board or commission or a you know, come to the board meetings at least once a year. Show up at a board meeting. You don't have to come to every board meeting, you know? Just act like you might be interested every once in a while. You know,
But if you look at this pool of candidates, in my opinion,
I understand. You
this
all have your own
candidate
opinion.
is the closest, has the closest characteristics of Jack. And the candidate, I mean, the voters in this community, I believe Jack got the highest number of votes of all the trustees. And his background is very similar to Mr. Calvert's. So that's why I'm
fine.
selecting this one.
Okay. Further discussion, board members?
I'd just like to say for the record too, I've rated all the candidates somewhat prior to coming in, but I reevaluated based on the comments that were made here tonight. And in no way did I talk to any of the other trustees to decide who, or tell them who I was gonna vote for prior to this meeting. And also, I'd like to say, I know there's a lot of candidates. A couple of them do show up at the meetings. That's fantastic. But I'd also like to say that a lot of the meetings, all the meetings are televised. And just because somebody's not here doesn't mean they're not participating and watching and giving their opinion to other trustees or board members.
Sure. Yep, absolutely.
You said anybody was a bad candidate. I just,
Yeah, no, I think,
You
I hope this board has made it clear that we definitely have a fine pool.
Yep.
And
I like to see it go to an election.
yep, I understand. Any other comments, board members?
Mr. Supervisor, I just want to say that out of my last 6.5 years that I've been on the board, this type of forum to me is the most difficult. We went through it with when Mr. Forlini left. We went through it when Mr. Verkest left. And it is very, very difficult. You know, how do you pick the best person from the 5-minute interaction that we have? We know people that we've dealt with that are in the audience that are candidates. Very hard to say no to those people. I think an election is a good way to go, but I don't think it's fair to the candidates, because if that was going to be our direction, I think we should have discussed that as a board and not put candidates through the requests we put them through tonight, right? I believe that happened when Mr. Forlini left, and I think it created a lot of bad feelings with the candidates. That's my recollection anyway. So I just wanted to let everyone know that. It's a very difficult decision. Most difficult decision I've had to make, other than the other 2 times we had to make appointments. So that's just my opinion.
I probably know Bill and Jim the best of all the candidates, I think, looking out here. I don't know Mr. Callowert. Just met him last night and maybe one other time, that's it. So,
Any other comments? I know that we opened up the floor earlier for public comment. I know in typical board meetings, we open the floor for public comment prior to a vote. I think at this point, I think we've heard from citizens. I don't know if there's a strong desire on the part of anyone to address the board. I don't want to limit anybody from having the opportunity to address the board prior to a vote.
I think we should follow our same procedure and just,
Open the floor?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Bill Servil, candidate. During the 2010 appointment, the subsequent appointment to replace Mr. Verkest as
2011.
trustee, it was stated that you were going to go to the next person, the next highest vote getter, who was Barb Urban. My understanding was someone said that she wasn't available, so that's how Mr. Brado came into play. Why aren't you using that same format tonight? That would be Mr. Senstock. He ran in 2012. Mr. Sheehy was the next vote getter that didn't get elected. Mr. Sheehy has since passed away. That leaves Mr. Senstock as the next highest vote getter. So if you follow the formula that was historically used, that's who you should appoint. Thank you.
Thank you.
James Watisha, resident. I really wasn't gonna say something or anything at point, but I think the way you guys do this is wrong. I'll be honest with you. You guys, you give them 5 minutes to set a resume up here. There should be a question and answers. We want to get things that we know, you guys know that's going on here, the problems that we're having, how would they handle it? I think that's the best way to handle this instead of giving somebody 5 minutes to come up here. And number two, I do believe you should hire, if you're going to appoint somebody, I think we should go to the election. I really believe the public should vote on this, not you guys, because it's what we want. But you have to look at it. I didn't know most of these people here. I don't go to a lot of the meetings. I know what Jim Senstock does. I know one thing about him. You guys don't like, none of us like everything comes out of his mouth. But he does his due diligence. That I know. He'll give you 110%. That I know. And being here at these meetings means a lot. And I think that you should take that in consideration. And I believe we should go to election for this appointment. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the floor for public comment and move back to board comment. Board members, any further public, or any further comment or discussion? Hearing none, we've got a motion by Mr. Brado with support by Mr. Capperell to appoint Mr. Charles Kellewart to fill the remainder of Mr. Swikowski's vacant position through November 20th, 2016. Mr. Witt, will you please take a roll call vote?
yes, Mr. Brado,
Yes.
Mr. Capperell,
Yes.
Mr. Tominello,
No.
Mr. York,
No.
Mr. Witt, no, Mr. Verkest.
Yes,
It's deadlock, motion fails.
3-3. All right. Board members, with a six-member board, we have to have 4 votes to choose a candidate. We've considered Mr. Kellewart through a motion, and that's failed by a 3-3 vote. At this point, we have the opportunity to consider another candidate, or to reconsider, or I don't know, I'm sure there's other actions. I suppose we can continue to address this at a future meeting. But first, I think the first order would be, is there any motion for any other candidate or any other thoughts by the board?
So, although I know I just spoke and I stated that I don't think it's fair to the candidates to go to an election, I will make that motion to see what kind of support I have, and I hope all you candidates understand why I'm doing that. So I will make a motion. I don't know if I'm gonna get support, but I'll make a motion to go to election.
Support.
Okay, we've got a motion by Mr. Tominello with support by Mr. York to go to an election. I presume you mean that, basically leave the vacancy open and then take the matter up on the November ballot.
Yes, Mr. Supervisor.
All right.
And I will say this, part of the problem is we have so many good candidates. I mean, I can think 4 or 5 people here that, I mean, I mean, we can just go down the list and make a motion until we find somebody,
Mhm.
but I,
Sure. Okay. Any other discussion about the motion of going to an election? Certainly, if there's, public input, would open the floor for public comment, if anyone would like to address the board.
You can go to the election. However, the seat sits vacant. You can appoint somebody that can sit there until the election. And quite possibly, yes, you can. Carol Brazil. Carol Brazil sat in the seat when Mr. Sheehy had to leave until we had an election. So I know that it can be done. It can be done. And
think what you're
I
saying,
can,
we can appoint and then still have an election?
you
Is that what
still
you're
have the
saying?
election. But I would recommend that whoever you appoint does not run. That would make it fair for the rest of the people, because the person sitting in the chair would have an advantage being known, name-wise, face-wise, and if you could do that, you could have the chair filled so you would not be stuck with deadlocks. So if that's the case, you want to go to an election, and it sounds fair. Because as it was, I'm going to go into a little history. I was the next vote getter after Mr. Caprow. I got 35 votes fewer than he did when he won the election. And Mr. Brado got less than I did. He was appointed. It didn't go the way the next vote getter kind of thing. Like if you went this way, Mr. Sheehy is dead, so Mr. Sinstock would be your next person. It just, I don't think that there's a fair way, especially when you have to face these people. It's tough, but that's what you're elected for. But it can, if you wanted to go to an election, you can appoint somebody. And I will volunteer not to run if you would like to have an interim appointment. So I don't know if the rest of the people would like to do that. That's fine, whatever happens, but there is a way out, and it's a way to save face for everybody. You don't have to make the decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Oh,
Herbert.
I have one other question.
Sure.
We had to put down our preference, our party of choice.
Only if, actually, that's a generic application, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but it's only if you're applying for, I think it's the Board of Canvassers.
No. I was told I had to register my party's choice when I filled out my application, and it is on there. Am I
If
not
applying
right?
for the Board of Canvassers or Civil Service Commission,
I said that's for the
you
Board
must
of
declare your
Canvassers.
political party affiliation.
In
That's what it says.
the previous round, the board had requested that the party preference be shown, so our office followed a similar protocol in asking for
Correct.
party preference. Given that these are partisan offices, we felt it
That's
was
right.
important for that to be included in the information provided to the board.
All right, I'm sorry.
I had to mark mine.
Yep.
And I would like to know how many Republicans and how many Democrats applied tonight are here?
8 Republicans, 1 Democrat.
Oh, okay.
We had 10 applicants.
Oh, I didn't look at Earl.
Considering it was late.
Yeah, I don't. Earl sort of goes back and forth, depending on the
Okay.
topic.
But
So
anyway,
9 Republicans and 1 Democrat.
so there was just one Democrat. Could can I ask, since that's public record now?
Yeah, I think it is public record,
The
right?
Democrat was Charles Cullowert.
Well, I don't know that
Thank
everybody,
you.
I don't think I should say, I don't think everybody designated party.
They didn't.
Right.
I think they did.
No, I
I
don't believe
looked,
so.
No, there
I
was
was
1
told
or
I
2
had
that did not. There was 1 or 2 that did not, Mr. York.
Oh. Oh, there are.
Thank you, Ms.
Yes,
Herbert.
there is one. Yes, you're right. You'd be correct.
Bill Servio,
Fine.
candidate. I filled out the generic form because I didn't know there was another form. I used the same one you do if you want to be appointed board or commission. But of course, I ran as a Republican in 2 prior elections, so I am a Republican. But what I came up here to state is that you already have a motion on the table that hasn't been voted on. But I'm not sure one way or the other if Barb Urban is correct. If she is, why don't you take your vote and then see if you can appoint someone from legal counsel and, to serve temporarily. I don't believe that's the case, but if you can, then you could do that at a subsequent meeting. Of course, if the vote fails now, then you can go back to try to find another candidate. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was coming to the meetings when Mr. Sheehy won his election and sat where Mr. Tominello are on the end here, and then just never came back. And we were informed that he was ill or for whatever reason he was not going to fulfill his term. So they contacted Mrs. Brazil. She came and she sat there, did a wonderful job until the election to fill the seat. And it was done. And you could, if you want to verify it, you could call Mrs. Brazil, I'm sure, in the morning, and she will confirm it. But it
Okay.
did happen.
Thank you.
I think they might have changed that law since, what year was that, 2000, 2001? 2000? I think they've changed that law. I think the law says you either appoint or you have 30 days to appoint or you go to an election. And I don't, and they just changed the law recently for this election on these appointments that if somebody resigns prior to, might have the date wrong, it's like April 3rd or April 8th, it's a certain number of weeks prior to the filing deadline that you must go to an election. The appointment process is no longer valid because the state legislature felt that, these are elected positions and they should be, the people's choice.
All right, is there any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll close the floor for public comment. I apologize for being rude. Now I know it looks like I'm monkeying around on our phone. Mr. Huth is our township attorney, and this evening is a board meeting at another municipality where he serves. And so we'd asked if he would be available for a text message, and I just sent him a question, can we appoint only to November and then hold an election? So I don't refute your statement that happened in the past. I'm not certain if the laws are still the same, so I was hoping to see an answer from him, and I know that in the past he's allowed us to read text messages at the meeting, so I was hoping to get that answer.
Well, this is what I would say. We have a motion and a second. Why don't we take the vote? It might even be a moot point. I don't know what the vote's gonna be right now on doing that. And if in fact that motion passes, we certainly can look into that with Mr. Huth over the next few days and bring a temporary position forward at Monday's board meeting. If that's Tuesday, I'm sorry, if that's the way that the board wants to go.
Well, I understand, again,
Yeah,
I understand the passion. I believe the appointment is the appropriate path to take. It's what we've done in the past, and it seemed to serve the board well.
And the one issue with putting it in a November election, I mean, we have 9 people who applied for appointment. Let's assume there's a similar number of people. I mean, it's difficult to make a decision for us 7, and we probably spent more time than most people would. And when you're on a ballot, there's no primary to wean people out. That's
It's an open election.
as I was saying, it's an open election, and it becomes very difficult to, I think, to get an actual true reading on what people want. You end up with sort of diluted vision of that.
Well, this is what I know. We had, I think, 12 people. Was it 12 or 10 people
When was
sign
that?
up when the supervisor's position was vacant? I believe
For
10
supervisor or for trustee?
For Supervisor or trustee?
Trustee, I remember I looked at the minutes, there were 14 applicants for trustee.
How many for supervisor?
I don't recall.
Let's just say there was 8. 8 people. 10 people for trustee. We know that Mr. Brado and Mr. Verkes got appointed. You would think that those people that were so passionate at the podium, they never ran for an election after that.
It's true. Some did, but, right.
I mean, you would think that,
Darren's
if you wanna
point is
be passionate,
true.
that-
Most of them didn't.
and, I don't know if all of these people will put themselves up to the scrutiny of an election. It's not for my choice. My guess would be some people will, some people won't. I don't know.
Yeah. Is there any other discussion, board members? Hearing none, we've got a motion by Mr. Tominello with support by Mr. York to go to an election. Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. Tominello.
Yes.
Mr. York.
Yes.
Mr. Brado.
No.
Mr. Capral.
No.
Mr. Witt. No. Mr. Verkest.
No.
Motion fails.
Okay, since that failed, then I will, based on the only person I ever see at a meeting, I would make a motion to appoint Mr. William Servial.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. York. Is there support? Is there support for the motion? Is there support for the motion to appoint Mr. Servio?
Take that motion off the floor. I'll make a motion to appoint Mr. Patrick Lindenberry.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. York. Is there support for the appointment of Mr. Patrick Lindenberry? Is there support for the motion to appoint Patrick Lindenberry?
I make a motion to appoint Ms.
Hold
Barbara
on, we still have a
Urban.
motion on the floor.
Well,
It's a motion.
how long do we want to wait?
Well, you have to say, the motion either has to die or you have to
Okay, I'll
withdraw
take my
it.
motion off the floor.
Sorry, I'm just
I make
wanna
a
make sure we-
motion to appoint Ms. Barbara Urban.
Okay, we've got a motion to appoint Mrs. Barbara Urban to fill the vacant trustee position. Is there support?
I'll take my motion off the floor. Make a motion to appoint Mr. William Batante.
All right, there's a motion on the floor to appoint Mr. William Batante to the vacant trustee position.
Support.
Support by Mr. Tominello. Discussion, board members.